You were motivated in the beginning of your life by your desire to serve God, if I understand it properly. What about now then? What are you motivated by?
Well, I am mostly motivated by not a fictional representation of value from an invisible magical deity, but the kind of value that is real because it is built out of atoms. There are agents in the universe who care about things, and that's the source of value in the universe. And that sort of was built of smaller parts, just like atoms were built of smaller parts. There was a period during the early history of the universe when there weren't atoms either. Atoms aren't this fundamental thing, and neither is value, but it just so happens that we live in a universe where there is value. It didn't have to be the case, but there is value in the universe. And in fact, there's even value very near us in the universe. And so what I care about is figuring out what that value is, how it works, and preserving it as possible, preserving it if possible. And in particular, my studies of lots of different sciences and lots of epistemology about how we would go about figuring out what's true and overcoming the biases in the way that our brains process information. I've come to believe that humanity faces a number of existential risks, risks to the existence of our species. It looks like every couple of decades we'll be able to invent a new way to destroy ourselves. The first was nuclear weapons. If we fired off all of our nuclear weapons, we might go extinct. Luckily, we haven't done that, but there were a couple of close calls already. And then shortly, we may be developing synthetic biology. There was a recent re-engineering of the bird flu virus that many experts say, if released, it's more contagious, basically, to humans, and so it could kill a third, a half of humanity. So there are worries now from synthetic biology being as dangerous to ourselves as nuclear weapons are. And another one that seems to be on the near-term horizon is artificial intelligence, for the reason that I said before, is that intelligence is this general power to be able to do things in the world according to your preferences. And human preferences are, if you think about the space of all possible preferences, human preferences occupy this tiny pinprick of a dot in that space of possible preferences that's very contingent on our narrow evolution and cultural history and so on. The difference between humans and their preferences is just dwarfed by the difference in preferences that are possible by different mind architectures. And so if you build an AI that's as powerful as humans, it's extremely unlikely that it will share anything like our values. And that means that it's very dangerous to our values because, well, the pithy way to say it is that the AI does not love you, nor does it hate you, but you are made out of atoms it can use for something else. So whatever its goals are, if its goals are to solve the Riemann hypothesis, one of the famous unsolved problems in mathematics, it'll just use its intelligence to take over as many resources as possible in order to solve the Riemann hypothesis, killing all humans in the process, but not because it cares about killing humans, but because the continuation of human existence is not important to the AI. And so what the Singularity Institute studies is this problem of how do you make a generally intelligent and powerful AI that is good for humanity instead of bad for humanity. And the difficulty is that a lot of commonly proposed naive solutions turn out to not work. Like you might say, well, why not just tell it to maximize happiness or something like that? Even if we knew how to specify what happiness was, that's not the sum total of what we want. It turns out that there are different systems in the brain for happiness or pleasure and what we desire, and happiness or pleasure is only one of the many, 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 many thousand shards of desire that we have in our neurobiology. And you can read this stuff in the recent literature from the neuroeconomics or decision neuroscience or affective neuroscience or the neurobiology of preference. So because of the complexity of our desires and preferences, it's very hard to imagine how we could build an AI that would have the same goals as we do and therefore result in good things for the world instead of bad things.
Those are all very important questions, and I would come back to them in our discussion a little bit later, because before that I want to ask you the more general questions, such as, So, where does the Singularity Institute fit within your general life's goals and motivation?
Well, these days I'm very lucky to be working directly for the organization that if I was working somewhere else, I would try to just save up money and donate it to the Singularity Institute. Um, it's very satisfying to be able to spend your entire day working on what you think is the most important problem in the world. And so that's very satisfying. But I hope that people understand the importance of being able to financially support what you think is the most important mission, because if you can make a significant amount of money because of the skills that you have and then donate it to the Singularity Institute or whatever you think is most important, you can basically pay for, say, 5 people of my caliber or my effect on the world or something like that. And that's moreover, it's often the case that if I wasn't doing this particular thing or somebody else wasn't doing a particular thing, somebody else would replace them and do similar to the same job as them. Whereas people who donate, it's not necessarily the case that if they weren't donating, other people would be filling their shoes. So for those two reasons, people should not feel bad at all about not working on their, what they think is the most important thing in the world if they can donate to what they think is the most important thing in the world. If you go to, I think it's highimpactcareers.com, you can basically get this analysis, or I'm sorry, I can't remember if that's correct, but it's 80,000hours.org. Has a lot of explanation of how this works. But so yeah, I'm very privileged to work directly for the Singularity Institute, but I want to make sure that people get that same warm, fuzzy feeling when they're supporting what they think is the most important mission in the world.
That's fantastic. So perhaps it's time to move on from your own personal history and traits, however fascinating they may be, to the overall goal and purpose of the Singularity Institute. What is it?
Well, it's basically what I explained earlier, is that, you know, to explain it in full detail, I'd have to walk you through a lot of AI architecture science and so on, and the neurobiology of preferences. But the short version is that we're on the verge this century of creating machines that are more able to optimize the world according to their preferences than humans are. By default, any AI that you create will be bad for us because it will have different preferences than we have. And so we need to do what I call differential intellectual progress. Before AI is created, we need to figure out solving particular problems in decision theory and mathematics and value theory, cognitive science in general, and have those solved before we solve the other problems of how to build powerful AI. So basically, we want to have the knowledge about how to build safe AI before we create AI that's more powerful than we are. Because if we create AI that's more powerful than we are, we might not have a second chance. We might not be able to ask the AI, hey, we messed up and gave you bad preferences. Could you just shut yourself down and we'll try again? No, because that's not going to satisfy the AI's preferences that it's programmed with. So basically, it's a lot of technical problems in decision theory and mathematics and AI architectures and so on that we need to solve so that we can prove that an AI will be good before it becomes more powerful than we are. And that's the mission of the Singularity Institute.